Hello, and welcome to our Stocks to Watch series from Global One Media, bringing you news from leaders of companies around the world to help you make informed investment decisions. I am Munir Barazi, your business analyst and host, and today I'm joined by Chris Frostad, the president and CEO of Purepoint Uranium Group, a Canadian uranium exploration firm that focuses on acquiring, exploring, and developing uranium sites. Their main project is the Hook Lake uranium venture in the northern Saskatchewan's Athabasca Basin. They are listed on the TSXV Venture Exchange as PTU and on the OTCQB as PTUUF. Hello, Chris. It's good to have you with us today.
Hi, thank you, Munir. Good to be here.
Wonderful. So let's get right into it. Tell us the story behind how Purepoint was founded and more about your driving mission and vision today.
Sure. Purepoint actually has been around for a while in northern Saskatchewan. This is the second run of uranium in the last 20 years. And I don't know how far back people would know, but after the 80s, uranium pretty much languished for about 20 years. Nobody was looking for it. Nobody was producing it. And we got started in Saskatchewan, northern Saskatchewan, back in about 2004, 2005. And we staked up a fair amount of property at that point in time. The market went kind of crazy back then. I think uranium prices hit well over $100 during that time period, and then sort of came off. One, when the banks started to flounder in the United States, and then two, when the tsunami hit Japan, and Japan shut down all of their nuclear reactors, which was about 10% of the world's reactors. So it was a big hit back then. But we had managed to do a lot of work on a lot of our property and keep it maintained through the downtime, if you will. We have two joint ventures with Cameco and Orano, who are two of the world's larger, if not largest, uranium suppliers, and that kind of got us through the low cycle of uranium prices. So as things kind of hike back right now over the last couple of years, and we see a lot of people now getting back into it. We see demand up. We see a lot of things changing. We've pretty much pulled a sheet off of quite a portfolio of projects we have up there, and we're moving them forward quite quickly now.
So you've managed to ride some rough waves in the market, and we're going to talk about your projects in a bit, but let's focus a bit on the commodity. Why uranium? Mm-hmm. Most people know that it's used for nuclear and power generation, but what other uses does it have? What is the market size and its growth potential?
Sure. Power is the only use for it. That which has been weaponized was put aside years ago, and none of the uranium right now goes towards the military. It's all very closely tracked and watched. The issue with the market is that it's small, to be honest. Uranium is such an efficient fuel source that it takes very little power. I could with a handful of uranium pellets, I can power all the electricity I would ever need in my lifetime. So it's a very efficient fuel source. And the market is very small. It's a $7 to $10 billion market a year, compared to, say, gold, where we're producing $250 billion of gold a year, or copper, which is probably, hundreds of billions of dollars worth a year. So it doesn't take much money in this market to kind of push it around. And what we saw happen back when Japan shut down all of its reactors was an oversupply of uranium. And so the price of uranium dropped substantially, and did for the last 10 years. We saw a lot of mines and production shut down during that time. And as a matter of fact, for the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've been producing about 20 to 30% less uranium than the world consumes. So we're now getting to that tipping point where we see prices starting to rise, where there is now a gap, where there's now a deficiency of supply, and we're seeing that the price of uranium rise. The price of uranium has to get up to about $70 to $80 before you can turn a mine on. and it's been running at about $25 to $30 for the last 10, 15 years. So it just recently, in the last couple of weeks, popped over $60, which is a bit of a milestone, and it is expected to get to up to $70 or more by the end of the year. So we're at that tipping point where we're seeing the price of the commodity move quite drastically, and as a result, all of any of the uranium equities, such as ourselves, that are in the market are rising quite drastically as well.
Right. So let's talk a bit about the supply side. You've mentioned that the market is relatively small, but tell us more about the supply side and your unique position.
Sure. Well, up until about 15 years ago, Canada was providing about a third of the world's uranium. And it all came out of northern Saskatchewan, as you mentioned, a place called the Athabasca Basin. And it's unique in that it has the highest grades of uranium in the world. And it's not just high, it's like freakishly high. So where you would typically around the world be mining uranium at about 0.4, 0.5, 0.6% ore grade, they're pulling it out of the ground in Saskatchewan at 10, 20% ore grade. As a matter of fact, the highest grade deposit right now up in Saskatchewan is 45%, which is insane, for any commodity to have an ore grade of that height. So it's why all of the exploration that goes on in uranium is primarily in northern Saskatchewan, because the upside is crazy high, and it's some of the cheapest uranium to produce in the world. Now, having said that, Kazakhstan, which was part of the problem over the last 10, 15 years, now produces about 40% of the world's uranium, and which has reduced Canada's importance. And they only really started producing uranium about 15, 20 years ago. And they have very low cost uranium. They mine it in a different manner than we do, and that's what kind of flooded the market, if you will, and kept the price down for quite a while. So that's on the supply side. It's mostly coming out of Kazakhstan right now, out of Canada. Some of it comes out of Russia, and that's been a problem lately because Russia actually convert that uranium into fuel. A lot of it, about 40 to 50% of the world's uranium is turned into fuel in Russia. So with the current sanctions and things going on, that's been a bit of an issue around the world as countries try and get their own domestic control over their fuel sources. So the supply is short. It's been underwater for a while, and new reports that just came out as recently as last week have suggested that as we get closer to 2030, there's going to be a true shortage of fuel for all of the new reactors that are now being built.
It is an important commodity. Can you elaborate more on your current projects and perhaps the key milestones you've accomplished in recent months or years?
Well, we've, as I mentioned, we've been in that area for a while now, and we've explored right across the province of Saskatchewan over the years. We now have 7 or 8 projects that we work on. 2 of them are joint ventures, as I mentioned, with Cameco and Orano, which they provide a lot of financial support. They also provide a lot of technical support, and they help validate those projects, and that those companies can't free up budget for exploration unless they believe that there could potentially be 100 to 150 million pounds of uranium there. So the fact that they continue to financially support those projects really justifies our work out there and the value that we think we'll see out there. Over on the other side of the provinces, the rest of our projects are all 100% owned, with all the capital now coming into the market, and the availability of capital for us to go out and do additional exploration. We've been doing a lot more work and drilling on across all of those projects. So as we come into, the high season for us for work in the field is in the winter. As we come into the fall now, we'll probably be raising additional funds to get back out and advance all of those projects, and with the objective always of making a discovery. That's at the end of the day, that's what we're out there doing, is finding the next big deposit.
And those projects really do seem promising, and it's a good vote of confidence to receive from your partners that they are investing resources in those projects. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a bit more about your financials. You mentioned that you have capital to allocate. Tell us more about your liquidity situation and the overall financial position, really.
Sure. Well, the financing exploration in Canada is I think much easier than in other countries because we get a lot of support from the government for money that's being raised to do exploration in Canada. We have a tax incented program here in Canada with regards to, it's called flow through, but it allows us to provide tax deductions to investors. So essentially, if you buy $100 worth of my shares, I can give you a $100 tax deduction if you're a Canadian citizen, and so that makes it a lot easier for us to get our hands on risk capital, if you will, because this is exploration. So we've never had really a problem on an annual basis determining what it is we want to spend, how much we want to spend, and then raising that money through private placements. So right now we've got $1.5 million to $2 million in the bank, which covers anything that we're up to these days, in order to go at it heavily. And there's time restrictions on the use of this money that I just mentioned as well. So over the next month or two, we'll be raising more money that will serve us through 2024.
Very good. And I'm aware of the tax incentives in Canada, and they are very encouraging for exploration projects. My final question, what catalysts should investors pay attention to?
I think right now it's drilling. People have to watch who's drilling because there's a lot of work that goes into advancing these exploration projects and understanding where it is, where your drill targets are. Excuse me. There's a lot of geophysics that has to be done up front. Uranium is essentially invisible to geophysics, and so you have to look for a lot of other indications and aspects, geological aspects, to target what it is you're going to drill on. So sometimes it'll be a year or two or three before you even drill a project because you're doing a lot of upfront work. All of our projects right now are ready to take a drill, and we have been drilling them. The ones we've been drilling, we've been finding uranium on all of them. And those that haven't been drilled yet are ready to drill. So I think for us and for anybody that's watching exploration in Saskatchewan right now, it's really watching to see who's going to be drilling, because the real real event that re-rates you is finding a deposit. You can only do that when you poke a hole in it.
Wonderful, very encouraging, and we wish you all the best indeed. Chris Frostad, the President and CEO of Purepoint Uranium Group, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of those insights and updates. We look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks a lot.